Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Superstock live stream. Again, January 22, we got VSBLTY Groupe, VSBY, VSBGF back with us. Jay Hutton, the CEO. Jay, again, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
A lot of, Jay, the stock has been, again, moving up tremendously, I think, since you first appeared. I mean, it looks like it's coming back to making new highs right now. I know it's been a little bit of a consolidation phase. I know everybody likes to see these stocks go up, every day, 10%. It's not, the world doesn't work that way. Sometimes they have to, take a rest before they increase, 500% again. But here's what's interesting is you've had, the last 6 weeks, I think you hit that inflection point. VSBLTY has kind of hit that inflection point in December. You started announcing these major partnerships. The market's been reacting. You got this new deal with the Skype Packets that was announced, which, can you explain? Well, actually, I think before we talk about Skype Packets, we got a lot of new people again. The audience is growing. So in a nutshell, can you explain, what VSBLTY does, maybe, and if you want to show us the video, and then we'll talk about all the new stuff.
You asked me to key up a video, so I'll do that, and then I'll speak over that video. Just give me 1 second here.
Let's get this over here.
So I'm gonna open up this video. Let me know when you can see it, Jack.
Okay. I think we got it coming up here. Okay, so this is going to kind of show us. I think it's important for the audience to understand, like, exactly, because your technology, they got to see it. So you do the talking now.
Sure. I mean, we're talking about two pieces of business. VSBLTY is, more than anything, the ability for, we build software that teaches cameras how to interpret what they see. On this particular display, you've got a retail display, which is measuring all the consumer engagement. You've got a cooler in grocery that's measuring all the consumer engagement, transparent, but also display capable. You can see the product through the screen. This is part of the about what we're doing with Embera, a press release made maybe a month ago, Jack, you'll remember. So we're now building all these components into Embera, the largest cooler manufacturer in the world. This is the type of data that we collect. This happens to be a casino application. I should probably stop it there because that's kind of germane. I'll stop it there for a moment, Jack, if you don't mind. This is the kind of thing, just an example of the kind of thing we pick up from cameras in real time. We run inference logic on cameras. This is software. So that software can actually in real time inform the promotion or whatever you're collecting the data for, exactly what's happening in physical space. And I like to say this, even though it's maybe a bit of an obscene comment. We do for bricks and mortar what Google did for the internet in 1992. We create measurement, physical person measurement, actual number of people, which can also be called in the advertising world, advertising glossary, impressions. But we also deliver demographic data, as you can see there. And we do that for retail and for security applications. I'm now playing the video again. Okay. Some examples of how we report it here. Of course, as we've talked about before, we have considerable exposure. Another deployment we did with Moet Hennessy, our largest champagne manufacturer in the world. And now we're pivoting to the second side of the business, which is our vector business. This is our security business. So in the same way our retail software can determine relevant statistical data for retail advantage, we can also do it for persons of interest, as you see right there, alert on the person of interest, but also things like objects, like weapons, fires, car accidents. We count vehicles, we look for license plates. All of those are now rapidly evolving into the security space. And the two marketplaces that we sit in are leveraging computer vision for various types of applications. And that's why we as an organization are at this major inflection point right now. Sure, we've got a couple of political hurdles to overcome in the US, and frankly, that's why you're going to find our organization to be heavily focused on marketplaces that have a more aggressive and welcoming approach to facial recognition technology, though it should be.
You know what? I think it's funny. We were like a few months ago, I would have agreed. Now I think the U.S. is we're at a point where it's going to be ready for embracing the security aspect of what you're doing, like very rapidly.
It's funny you should say that. We look back on inflection points, and an inflection point for our business was the Capitol riots. Believe it or not.
Yeah. No, things are happening in the U.S., which is like, I don't know, but
it's subterranean, right? It's happening at a under the surface level. But I didn't want to talk about this today, but we got calls from a segment of the society which is very interested in security, US based. Yeah. And I think you and I, Jack, have talked a lot about why we basically avoided the US because it's just too hard. It's just too hard to try and penetrate your product with all the political headwinds. They are easing considerably now. And think about schools, critical infrastructure. That's what's immediately next for us. Deployments and partnerships in each of those categories will be a major theme for us in 2021.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I mean, like, I want to get into like the economics, because I think this is the thing people need to understand, the economics, and then I would dive into the Skype Packets, because you have these. Somebody just put this up here, 3 pillars, which is interesting. Where is this comment? There was an audience comment here. Yeah, okay. So it's very interesting that what you're doing is, your technology essentially it covers these massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. You have the consumer, you got the measurement, you got the advertising, the marketing, and at the same time you have the security aspect, which in the US I believe is probably going to catch on pretty soon. But in Latin America, it's a big driver. That's driving the sales for you, right?
Absolutely. Latin America is the shining star for us, but the US is not far behind. We're seeing adoption happening in the US, of course, influenced heavily by current events. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, this is like, I don't want to get into the political stuff. I personally, I'm anyway. What's interesting is you had the whole Capitol thing, and they apparently the FBI is like rounding up these guys because they saw them all on video and they're able to match with whatever they're matching with databases. But apparently without the video, without having
cameras
everywhere, they wouldn't have been able to do this. All of a sudden, I think now the government is
what a great example.
This is all of a sudden
right. It's a great example of why we're different. If you use facial recognition, you're typically, and Capitol Riots investigation is a perfect example. You're using it forensically. When the horses left the barn, you're trying to find out how the horse got out. So in the Capitol Riots application, they're taking social media images and they're matching that social media to live, stored video images collected during the Capitol riot. That's perfectly acceptable and a reasonable use case for facial recognition. But here's why we're different. We do that in real time. You have 50 people that you're concerned about. You tell the cameras to proactively look for these people in real time, and you alert on their presence. So we're not forensic. We're not investigatory. We're real time analysis and alerting. Right. So it's preventative. Exactly right. And that's where the big investment is. Jack, one of the things I wanted to say to you and why I think our timing is critically important right now. Just look at the USA market for security services and monitoring. Currently, that's about $100 billion annual marketplace. By 2025, this marketplace, I'm talking about total addressable market, USA security services, 100 billion today, 187 billion by 2025. It's almost going to double. And the bulk of that, and this is critical to our value proposition, the bulk of that new spend will be on AI capable infrastructure. The days of dumb cameras just delivering video feeds that are inert, benign, and kind of useless, those days are gone. And the days of real-time analytics while the video is being streamed into the system, that's where this business is going. And we're an early player.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's funny. We should, I guess, again, we have to, we should mention that essentially your technology, the AI, captures the image and compares behavior. Jay, can you kind of again walk us through the data that you get and the analytics and how all that works?
We have over 100 algorithms that can run on processors. Those processors can be on local compute, near proximity close compute, or on the camera itself. And we run things like license plate detection, face detection, facial recognition, sentiment detection, demographic detection, a fire in the field of view, a car accident in the field of view, a weapon in the field of view. There's over 100 of those algorithms in our library. And part of what we do is we say to the customer, what do you want to run? What do you want to look for? And by the way, what you might want to run on Friday night at an event might be different than what you want to run Saturday. So part of our whole ethos is, this is crazy to use this term in security software, but drag and drop interface where you can pull algorithms from the library to the camera and then bang, start running them. Unheard of technology, no code interface, no requirement for super educated operators, just the ability to drag and drop like you would to a Dropbox or something like that. So we've got an enormous opportunity. We've made it simple because we're trying to grab on to that $87 billion of growth, which is in the next 5 years. And this is where it's all coming from, in my opinion.
Okay, so we got an audience comment here. Yeah, the value is going to be the data, the data, the behavioral data, the AI data, and that's going to. And again, the more every day, the company becomes valuable just by virtue of the data you're collecting. And again, it's like the big data company, the big tech, big data companies. That's what makes them valuable. So this is.
You've made that comment, I think, quite correctly before. That on the retail side, data about one visit to one store at one time is useless. But a visitors coupled or combined over time, over multiple locations, now you've got millions and tens of millions of impressions, enormous value that comes from that. Think of an example that's just very basic. We do a deployment for Pepsi and a deployment for Coca-Cola in 25 cities. Now we have that data that will allow us and us alone to be able to draw conclusions about how each of those products have as terms of an influence on their customers and the velocity connected to their sales cadence. We only have that idea. So we have that data, and it's our data alone, independently monetized, owned by Visibility. And you can extrapolate that to other campaigns across other brands as we scale.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think one of the key things is for investors is again, to use the hockey term, you want to be where the puck is heading. The way Wayne Gretzky say where it's heading, not chase after. And right now the puck is heading. All the tailwinds are heading like it's towards you right now.
It's very audience aware of you, Jack, to use a hockey reference for a predominantly Canadian audience. Well done.
Yeah. Well, I've been using this for a long. Right now, for some reason our audience has flipped. It's like 80% Canadian now. It used to be 80% US, and last couple of 6 months. So I'm not going to complain because the best stock are
right. Yeah.
So what? Okay, we got some great comment again. I got to get to this with the Skype Packets, but I want to cover some questions because these are very interesting here. Intel. So one thing is, you're not a hardware play, right? It's a software play.
We're software. Yes. Yeah. So Jack, you've frozen up, but the software that we use runs on a processor. That processor can be located on a general compute, as we all understand compute, or it can sit on a camera itself where the compute runs on the camera. This is perhaps the most important evolution in where compute occurs. It used to occur exclusively and every time in a data center. Think of Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, and now we're moving the compute closer to the edge. It got close to the edge with a local computer, and now it's getting on the edge itself running on the camera. So we empower that software that runs on the camera or on the local compute.
Okay, so yeah, it's AI software, no hardware. What's the connection with Intel about that?
Well, this question here is, what can we say about the Intel connection? Will Intel become a visibility? Well, we've disclosed this. Intel is our largest customer right now. We did the most amount of revenue in 2020 with Intel, and that's already been disclosed. And we'll do more. Our relationship with Intel is getting considerably more commercial. I think I've said this to you before, we do a lot of business with a lot of very large companies, which means that we can be super strategic to them, but they're enormous and we're not. They tend to drive the cadence of disclosure, and that's okay. We just have to deal with that. That's part of the downside possibly of doing business with such large companies. But look for us to do 2 major initiatives with Intel, perhaps 3 in the short term here, and I'm very excited about this, about that, those set of circumstances. And the fact that they view us as strategically as they do is, to me, exciting. And we'll be doing a lot of revenue with them this year because of that. Yeah.
Okay. Jay, I want to ask you about the Skype Packets.
Yeah.
I think the market, I think it seems like it's something very substantial and important, but the market, when it first came out, the market didn't really react. So explain exactly what this news means.
Like everything, I think we've got to sort of decode or decrypt.
With the first, whenever you put out a lot of your news, the market doesn't really kind of react until you
I'll try to do better.
A week later, a month later.
Well, in fact, Skype Packets is a great example of some benefit that Intel has brought to us. Intel introduced us to Skype Packets, and Skype Packets was part of the Mexico Wi-Fi initiative. I think I've talked about this before, where the old way of building a security network is cellular modems, where every single camera has its own connection to the cellular network. The new way, think of 1/10 of the cost, is to build a metropolitan Wi-Fi network, kind of like the stuff we have in our homes, but bigger. Skype Packets is one of the leading purveyors of Wi-Fi networks for metropolitan centers. So we brought them into the Mexico deployment. Intel brought them in. We redesigned all of Mexico, and we've now supplanted the old way of doing things, point-to-point cellular, with Wi-Fi 6 mesh. Wi-Fi 5 is the stuff we have in our homes. Wi-Fi 6 is the next generation of Wi-Fi. Think of bigger, broader, faster. And we've connected our camera network to a Wi-Fi 6 infrastructure. And now, having done that with them in Mexico, we go back to Skype Packets, who count among their customers Google, business improvement districts, including New York City, and including multiple transit authorities. Now, remember, they're delivering Wi-Fi capability. So they've got a network in place. What's the first thing you want to put on the network in terms of unique applications that leverage that network? The first thing is security. So they've got their customers for whom they've already deployed a network that we're now going to them with Skype Packets to say, okay, we're going to layer security on this network now. It's a very easy progression, and that's why I can say with confidence the Skype Packets deal will generate revenue to us this quarter with very well-known customers. So we're excited about that. But we worked with them for 6 months in Mexico. So it's not like they're new to us, so there's anything we have to do in terms of proof of concept. That's already behind us.
Okay, so they were referred to by Intel. I mean,
yes,
it's a strong validation. Okay, so and if you can, okay, so also talk about a little bit about the deployment in Mexico. Like, in other words, you have the kind of, it's the security, the marketing thing. What are you doing there? Like, which cities is deployed? And I think maybe just, if you want to, Jay, if you want to just bring up some of the case studies, kind of the success that the cities have had with using your technology.
Sure. There's 8 of the 11 municipalities in Mexico City that are running our systems. Some have just begun to deploy, and some of them are fully deployed. The highlights would be Benito Juarez, who have the greatest density. Coayamalpa, which is a region of Mexico City. Mexico City, like Manhattan, is carved up into multiple boroughs with independent mayors in each of those boroughs. They call them counties. One example is Adrian Ralakluva, and I probably just butchered his last name, but he's a 38-year-old mayor of Coahumalpa, where they went from the 11th safest county in Mexico City to the safest in 13 months with a 40% crime reduction, because he has something like 1,600 cameras deployed right now. And we're right now, because there's been instances where the facial recognition picked up on a bad guy and we were able to dispatch law enforcement, and everything worked precisely as it was meant to work. And so we're case studying those right now. We're going to create some supporting material, because that's exactly how you tell the story. Now, to Adrian, there's a certain value to increasing the safety of your community, no doubt about it. That's in and of itself, that's a reasonable outcome. But as these things go, he's going to get reelected. He's going to get reelected. There's a certain outcome there. And this is why when we market our services to mayors across Mexico, we use Adrian as our standard bearer, right? As our flagship, because they all want to get reelected. What's happened as a result of the Intel involvement in the Mexico project, which I referred to earlier, is we've now built a reference configuration using Wi-Fi 6, which means that we can take this as a cookie cutter approach and now pop it into other municipalities in Mexico, like we're doing in Juarez, like we're doing in the Cancun region right now, and elsewhere in Latin America. The value there is the second half of that piece. Now that we've got a reasonable, scalable, workable model that comes in at 1/10 of the cost as traditional models, we now have the ability to deploy security and surveillance, as well as public utilities in places that they couldn't previously afford it. And that's what's critical about when Intel gets involved. We solve for scale, right? We solve the problems associated with scale because they bring to us incremental partners that will help us address those topics.
Jake, can you talk about so let's talk about the economics of all the different aspects. So in terms of in Mexico right now, you have the there's the the thing you're doing the security part. Are these also is there a marketing element with this deployment also? Is it tied in or no?
In the deployment for security in Mexico City, the surveillance network with our partner Radar, what's there right now is the POI, the demographics, people counting, and we're moving now to license plate recognition and fire and accident. So we're adding algorithms for public utility. It starts with security and then expands to more capabilities in the public utility space. What we're doing here is we're increasing the stickiness, Jack. So the municipality gets an outcome, a law enforcement outcome, and that's valuable. But now we also give them operational outcomes, which increase our stickiness. And by the way, our revenue model is so much per algorithm. You want to look for car accidents? That costs you so much per camera per month. You want to look for license plate detection? So much per camera per month. So it's a a la carte menu.
Okay. So and also, but at the same time in Mexico, you had the deal with what is it? Is it Modelo, right? Where you're doing the
Modelrama.
same thing.
Modelrama
retail stores with
Modelrama
security.
Yeah, Modelrama has some overlap capabilities with what's going on in Radar, and Radar is a component supplier to that network, so we've got a consistent story and vision there. But what Modelrama is, as opposed to the smart city application, are three discrete things: visual display, which by the way is module 1 of what visibility does, content management system; shopper analytics, so we're gathering up real-time shopper analytics, day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. And I say this in present tense because this is not aspirational, it's running now, and we're scaling it as we speak. That's the second item. And then the third item, because if you run a small convenience store in Mexico or anywhere in Latin America, you will be robbed. It's not a question of if, it's a question of time. And that's the third component, 3 pillars: content management, data analytics, and security, all wrapped up in a single visibility deliverable, which makes it really unique. And so what's in it for Modelrama is they get to tell the philanthropic story about how they're making their employees and franchise holders safer. They're getting data that allows them to optimize their supply chain real time from the store, and they get an advertising component which is independently monetizable. So it's a win-win-win.
It's a win across. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. Let's talk about the economics. So I mean, I think the fact. Okay, so I think should we start with? Okay, let's talk about the retail, then we'll go to the security side. So, okay, just to recap the economics, because this is the amazing part of the VSB story is, the revenue potential. So, Jay, walk us through the kind of the SaaS, the business model, revenue per store, and a global opportunity.
Sure. Now, I'll preface it to say that we're in the final stages of negotiation of a binding contract with Modelrama and our local partner now. So what I'm going to talk to you about is the bookends of the revenue, because I haven't gotten into a place where, even though we've done 7-year projections on this deal, there is still some conversations that will affect those numbers a little bit, but not in an enormous way, but just in modest ways. So I want to preface my comments. First of all, what you need to understand is there's 2 discrete revenue streams from the Grupo Modelo and Modelrama deal. There's the SaaS revenue stream. We get so much per location per month as this systems deploys, and it's between $10 and $15 per store. And that is visibility revenue and only visibility revenue. The second is, you can imagine, as you build out a Modelrama network, which goes to 5,000 stores in year 1, or 10,000 stores in year 1, 20,000 in year 2, 50,000, climbing up to 120,000 stores by the end of year 6. Over that time, that network has a certain per store value as a media location, right? As a channel. We get 33% of that media revenue because we play a critical role in delivering that media, those brands, and monetizing that media network. So together we're combining forces. Outside of the collaboration is our software as a service revenue line, and inside the collaboration is the media value, which of course has the same kind of recurring revenue and gross margins as software because it's media. So using those 2 parameters, on the software as a service side, the first 5 years of the contract will generate between $12 and $18 million in software as a service revenue to visibility. On the media side, our percentage of the media value will be in the neighborhood of $100 to $120 million over the first 5 years of the deal.
Per year?
Yeah, per year. And we climb to 120. The first year it's not 120 because it's reliant upon deployment cadence, right? But as you get to, I mean, at 100,000 stores, between 100 and 100,000 stores, on the SaaS side, we're $1 million, $1.5 million a month, just on that. So okay. On the media side, it's about we climb to about 100, 120 million. The overall value of this deal to visibility is in the first 5 years around 300 million, between 300 and 350 million, if we achieve the objectives that we expect to achieve. And the reason why I'm being cautious on that right now is the paint is not yet dry on the pieces and the allocations per partner. But it's a significant opportunity, the biggest by far that the organization's ever done. And I'll hasten to add, Jack, it is a real validation that the store has independent and validatable media value. That's the most important message here, because what they're doing.
We're getting into marketing geek territory. But let's cover it. So the store as media. Let's basically to recap what is essentially the way the new trend is. Everybody's waking up to the fact that the eyeballs, the people walking the store. I mean, they're worth money. Besides buying, they can monetize those people, right? They can monetize. Walmart or CVS can monetize Walgreens. 1,000 people walking in a day. They're worth a lot of money to those brands. So now they're going to turn to you to show them those ads.
Well, they're worth a lot of money, not just with basic footfall. I know I'm turning into a shopper geek here, but not just basic footfall, but you're at the point of sale. Yeah. So in an impression delivered for a PepsiCo or for a Budweiser beer, where you can within 4 feet buy that product, is is considerably more valuable than an impression delivered where you on a bus stop where you can't buy that product.
Yeah.
So the media value is not even a debate right now. It has considerable media value. It is 100% video. So think about how well YouTube does. It's because people are attracted to movement. We're incorporating video in retail so that, Jack, you may not want to look, but you're wired to look. Our brains are wired to look. You may look for 3 or 4 seconds, but in those 3 or 4 seconds, as a shopper, I can deliver to you a message. And that message will 70% of the time result in impacting or influencing your actions. That's just science.
Yeah, no. I mean, the numbers are like off the charts. So how much do you make per store? Let's go through those economics again, like with a CVS or anybody like that. Like let's per month.
Well, the Modelrama is a real great example because it's only one display. I mean, this is a 40, it's a US, well, it's a Canadian audience, so I'm going to stay with the meters. These are 30 square meter stores, 30 to 40 square meters. They're tiny.
Yeah.
So there's only one display, one. But if you go to a CVS where there's, I'm going to flip over to feet, 40,000 square foot, 50,000 square foot, there's on average 10 to 15 digital activations per store. So it's 15 times the value of a single Modelrama, as an easy math. Modelrama, we cut an aggressive deal because we wanted a piece of that back end media revenue. So we discounted our SaaS fee slightly, but now we're participating on the 33% of the back end. So it's a good deal for us overall. But you can, it's just using those Modelrama examples, if you were to take that into a CVS as an example, and you were to assume 10 activations per CVS, call it $20, $25 per activation. Now you've got $250 per CVS per month in terms of software as a service license fees. That's just one store. CVS has 10,200 stores. So if we accept that the entire retail industry understands that there's a pivot to retail as a media channel, and by the way, this is a foregone conclusion. Everybody's there right now, including the biggest brands in the world. Then you've got a multi-billion-dollar media channel, which is just asserting itself now. And we're absolutely, without any argument, on the front end of that revolution with major partners that can execute on that right now.
So essentially, this is sort of like what percentage of the market do you think VSB has in this kind of new, store as media, like in this, mind share? What percentage of the market do you have?
It's a nascent market. It's just beginning.
Sort of like the internet in 1996.
Well, I've heard that analogy several times as it relates to this initiative. Yeah. I would say it's not a stretch to say that VSBLTY has between 20 and 30% of the immediate addressable market.
Okay, so that's
maybe more.
Okay, that's massive. That's a massive position. Because
if we maintain that, you can see how ridiculous it is. But I should hasten to add, WestRock, an announcement we made 6 weeks ago or so, largest display company in the world, largest. They have a multi-billion-dollar, and it's an S&P component company, right? Huge company. They own retail display. But that retail display is all analog, if you'll allow me that rough analogy. It's printed.
Yeah.
It's all printed, this cardboard display. And it's moving to digital. We're already in revenue with that relationship. We're super strategic, connected to C-level at that organization, and we're an exclusive partner of theirs. So the rising tide, I mean, they get involved in every single brand conversation because their principal relationship is with brands. And brands are driving this agenda. They don't want to buy old crap anymore. They want to buy new stuff. And that's what's driving retail to embrace this.
Yeah. So we're just it's like they're saying it's like YouTube in 2010. This is where you are now with the store as media.
In a lot of ways, it's like YouTube, right? Yeah. It's in a lot of ways, right? It was the pre-heavy monetization of YouTube, right?
So this is okay. So this is essentially it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity here. I think it's a question. It's a question of, when is like a strategic buyer, like a Google, could a Google, this is like, you're right in Google's alley. Why wouldn't they just, buy VSB, and just be done with it? Because I mean, this is what they need. They're always looking for new, kind of new because the AI, everything what you're doing fits into their whole playbook.
I think the reason why, and this is conjecture, this is guesswork. I think the reason they wouldn't do it now is they're waiting for that initial significant deployment. And for us, I think when we're 2,000-3,000 stores down or behind us at Modelrama, listen, that's the largest media network commitment made in the Western Hemisphere, maybe in the world. And I don't know that. It's just very, very large. And the amount of attention that's on our little company as a result of that deal, and it's only at LOI right now, right? As we get to that deal in terms of real economic unit level economics, we begin to talk about that, as we've done a little bit today. We're going to get more and more momentum because of that. I can tell you that subsequent to that deal, if you're in the agency business, if you're WPP, Publicis, Momentum, Geometry, and you represent brands, what you represent brands for right now is helping them buy various types of media. If we agree that store is becoming a media, those big creative agencies and who express their revenue in multi-billions of dollars are either terrified or extremely motivated, and possibly both. So since that Modelrama deal was announced, we've been contacted by the biggest players who are looking to find a strategic relationship with us so that they could go to a Unilever or a J&J and say, we've got a network, we're aligned with this company that can do all the pieces, we'd like to deploy it. So look for that to be the next step on what we're doing. It's a natural progression, right? It's exactly where these companies need to go. Because if they don't go there, it's an extermination event for them.
Yeah, no, this is it's kind of things are really lining up for VSB this year. It looks like this. I think we're getting into the I think we passed the inflection point. This is kind of where things are really starting to kind of, the momentum is starting to build. Okay, so we got a couple questions I want to get to here on Skype Packet. Skype Packet rolling out your SaaS to existing customers.
Yes. That's exactly the plan. And there's a big one that is not an existing customer for Skype Packets, but very big, that we are strategically moving on right now. I'm not projecting success, but there's a lot of things lining up to give us good confidence.
Okay, so in terms of and so who are some of their customers for Skype Packets? Who are some of their other customers?
So Google's a customer. The what's that? You're an ex-New Yorker. The Ironside neighborhood, the Times Square Alliance. I'm sorry, Flatiron District. Exactly right. A Flatiron District business improvement, Times Square business improvement, Google, Vancouver, Yaletown, right here where I live, is a customer. So what they do is they build municipal networks for Wi-Fi 6, as we talked about earlier. And now, as we layer on applications, security and retail analytics are applications. They're going to be driving more value on that network that they've already deployed.
Are they the ones that build those kind of things that's on the street that have the sign, they get the display, and they get the Wi-Fi? I don't know what they're called, the smart city thing. What do they call it?
So that's the category. They've done them in several locations, but yeah, that's the category. In New York City, you're an ex-New Yorker. That's Intersection. That is now owned by Google Sidewalk, that have done those installations.
Google Sidewalk. Okay. So essentially, what you're doing is, your technology could be plugged into that system for the AI aspect, in terms of, targeting ads, in terms of the security, all that stuff.
Advertising is all about impression counting. So we count people, but we also get demographic. We get deeper data than you would ever get when browsing a website, if you know what I mean. It's the data. Somebody just said the data. I was about to say that. It's the data that's the valuable piece. And that's a long bow, right? Because you have to build up that data archive before it becomes valuable. And we're building it up right now.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Jay, to wrap up, this is, I mean, things are really starting to cook here. I mean, it's like there's sort of a momentum. I could just feel there's like a momentum building. These things are more and more impressive. So what else? What do you have in store for 2021? I just realized this is our first interview of 21, right? This is our first.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first. This has been a busy month. I just realized this is. So what is VSBY's? What's the big? You know what? What's the big theme for 2021? If you have to put one word, if you have to use one word to describe VSBY in 2021, what is it?
It would be three, I think. Large collaboration, which is bigger than anything we've ever done before. Commercial collaboration. I mean, I'm excited about co-development. We've benefited from co-development, but I get really excited about commercial offerings, collaborative commercial offerings, where we're the company responsible for delivering the secret sauce, and the company we're aligned with will help us get to market. I said this before, that's a force multiplier. That's a phrase I've used before. That's exactly what our partners are. And for the first time, we're going to be having we're going to have a couple of announcements connected to us aligning with very well-known brand names that allow us to go global. That's number one. And two elements of the business. Number two is a pivot to solution sets that apply to critical infrastructure. We're computer vision. And if you run an oil and gas refinery, or if you run a solar farm, or if you run a nuclear plant, you have unique security challenges. And think about the things that computer vision can do. We have 100 algorithms in the library, Jack. Go and shop your algorithms, pick the ones you want, and we'll be able to apply them into cameras that allow you to protect your critical infrastructure. And because of that, we can also connect IoT sensors. And I don't want to get too geeky, but if you run a solar farm, for example, you're worried about your panels getting out of operating range because they burn out. So we can add to our capability thermal capability that shows you when your panels are outside of operating parameters. Now we're, as I said before, now we're delivering operational benefit, not just security benefit. And the broader we can go into that stack of capabilities, the more successful we're going to be. That's number two. And then number three is, you said this before, that's our pivot to profitability, which we're projecting this year.
Okay, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned the force multiplier. I mean, the partnerships you have. I mean, that get you into all these places. They're very significant. You got Sensormatic. We didn't even talk about Sensormatic. That gets you into all the retail stores. You have you know, the Skype Packets guys. You got Intel. I mean, you got a lot of pretty serious partners at this point.
It's good and bad, right? It's good because aligning with the big boys, they can give you distribution and reach you could never get yourself. That's the good. The bad is they call the audible. They call the cadence. They tell you when to snap the ball. And so that is partly the problem. It's just you got to be patient, and that's difficult for me. But I understand. I mean, I'm prepared to take off. I'm prepared to deal with the trade-off, particularly with a couple of the big ones that have enormous crystallizing value for visibility that are ahead of us. Look up ABI. You know, we signed the letter of intent with them in early December. We'll probably have our contract with them done and disclosed by the end of this month. And then, of course, as that grows and gathers steam, we'll be able to talk in more, disclosive terms about that deal. But they govern it, right? We don't govern it. We try to, and to the extent that we can, we do. But that's part of the downside.
Okay, Jay. Top 3 reasons why investors should consider VSBY today.
Well, I mean, I stepped on all 3 of them, but just by summary, number one, it's an old term, but inflection. We're pivoting to profitability this year, and that's, we all look our careers for. You don't want to be too early for the party, or too late for the party. You want to be just as it's beginning, and I think that's where we are. The second thing is the security market itself, and I've never talked this way before, or at least highlighted this particular topic of, is shifting to AI in a big way. And we are, particularly with some of the stuff we have right in front of us in terms of announcements, development-based announcements, we're going to be a major player in the AI space when it relates to camera-based AI. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is we're beginning to get a pretty reliable deal momentum cadence that we never had in 2020. And I think that's on the retail side because it's buoyed by the embracing of store as media, and it's also on the security side as we get more and more deployments underway.
You know, one thing I forgot to even bring up. One of the guys you have in the company is a former. Speaking of the security side, you have a former FBI guy, right? What's his name?
Jeff Mueller, not only former FBI, but one of the founding member of the CBRNE, Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear, and Explosives Task Force, and the guy that started the Critical Infrastructure Group at the FBI. So, based on my earlier comments, you can imagine he's played an important role in our cultivating and filtering of our go-to-market for critical infrastructure.
Excellent. Okay. On that note, Jay, thank you for joining us. Thank you everybody for joining today's live stream, and we will catch you on the next, hopefully very soon.
Thank you, Jack. Yep.
Thank you, guys.